Chairman Shaw came, so we were waiting on him to come from Lakeland. Well, I wanted many committee members could get here. So, and Lynn, do you have any updates on the bill? Anything been changed at all? Okay. I apologize for missing the last meeting, but I couldn't make it. I thought I was going to be able to make it, but Chairman Smith had to take over, and I'm sorry I missed that. And I know a lot was said, but I thought what we would do is just, as a committee members, just discuss it. And Carolyn, Representative Hughley, I know you had some issues or concerns, and Representative Carson, Representative Lumpson, I know you had some concerns, and Representative Shaw, so I thought we'd chat about it. I did bring some evidence of what life insurance companies do, and they certainly take my money, but I was going to pass this around that I didn't make any copies of it, but I've got coverage with certain companies, and they do already notify me by email and, of course, by normal mail. So I don't really see the big issue with companies notifying policyholders, once a quarter, or once every 6 months, or once a year that there are other benefits to the life policy, since the life insurance is owned by the individual or by someone and also involves a beneficiary. So I think it's good policy. I know some folks have said it's a Rogers mandate. I don't call it a Rogers mandate, but I think it's good policy for all of our constituents. And anybody want to discuss it? And I know Representative Carson, you and I have spoken. Representative Shaw, Representative Hughley, and I have not spoken about it, but Representative Carson, let me pass this around to you. You can just kind of look. That's one company. There's really no cost to emails, in my opinion, but there is a time element. But I certainly get emails when I need to pay a premium. So, and I don't see anything wrong with carriers notifying of other benefits that could be available. So. There's a back section. I didn't print the 2 pages, but of course everything can be done online, and I would think most of the population today has access to email, or some loved one does, and not everybody's doing it. But I would say, what would you say, Representative Hughley? 80%, 75% email now?
Well, it depends on the age group. Older population is not that high.
Well, I had a relative of mine that started emailing at 97, and she died at 102. So, it's really simple. And her email address was headdummy@AOL.com. Sylvia Gailey Head was her name. She's been dead a couple of years, but. Did I hear from anybody else?
Did you have anything, Carol?
No, I don't. I don't know exactly where we're going, Mr. Chairman, or what you want us to talk about.
Well, I know,
I did
go ahead.
Share some concerns about the notice, and I share those concerns because once it becomes a requirement, if the notice somehow is missed, then you create a cause for somebody. And it's not as simple as just letting people know. And then the bill, if I remember correctly, says that notice has to go out at a time when it's really not applicable to everyone, but the way you have it set up in the legislation, it's not as simple as just sending an email. And let's see, I'll look and see where that listing is, but there was some concern about that list.
Let me refer to Lynn. You want to chime in on that, since she's the attorney that drafted the bill?
Which version? That's the LC 3720 for the Yes, and I think the list you're referring to starts on line 64. As the triggering occurrences.
Lynn, can you speak up a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Those are the triggering occurrences on line 64 that I believe of when the notice is required.
For example, Mr. Chairman, on this one, number B on line 67, if they're 60 years or older and is known by the insurer to be terminally ill, and of course, how is the insurer supposed to know that they're terminally ill? Is it just communication with the individual? Is there something written that the insurer gets, or what do you have in mind for that part of it?
Well, I think that's that answer will come from the rules and regs from the department, because the department will engage and administer this. So, me personally, I don't have any particular thing, but says on 28, the commissioner shall develop a written notice promulgated by rules and regulations to apprise each policy owner.
Mr. Chairman, comment.
What number are you? 6.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you bringing this House bill forward last session, as well as this resolution. I am not in the insurance industry myself.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than dig into the specific wording of the bill and so forth, I think of insurance as the spreading of risk, and life insurance proceeds obviously paid upon a death benefit. Legally speaking, can you sell that in what I would call, in the finance industry at least, you call it factoring. I forgot what you call it in the life insurance settlement contract, I understand. Legally, can you do that? Yes. In conferring with other committee members, I think we would be setting a dangerous precedent as far as state statute to say this must be mandated, that it must to be communicated out to policyholders, like Representative Hughley just mentioned. And it could be very simply done. It may not cost, very much at all to be put various text in a email or what have you. But I don't know that I like the precedent here in regard to mandating that insurance companies, they're mandated under state law and state insurance law, to your point, regulated by the insurance commissioner, to say this must be advertised once a quarter, once a year, what have you, to life settlement companies, life settlement contract companies, that these kind of things can be sold and so forth. That's not what they're designed for. They're designed to be paid benefits upon death. Again, right. Insurance is about the spreading of risk. Privacy policy, I hear what you're saying about email communications. Privacy policies, those go out once a year. Declaration pages is that go out upon the commencement of a insurance contract. Premium payments, we know those come out. I just have a real concern about putting in statute that we're requiring this, because you could make that same argument in the commercial space to say this company must stipulate or mention to its clients or its policyholders or stakeholders that it has options and so forth. And I know I have friends on both sides of this issue, but I just have a real concern about not the cost that insurance companies are talking about, whether it be minimal or a mailed notice, or it could be more with a mailed notice as opposed to email. What I'm really concerned about is the precedent that we're setting in regard to what insurance really is for. And insurance is for the spreading of risk and making someone, quote unquote, whole, or paying a policy amount upon a life, it's going to be a death benefit. So those are my concerns, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chairman Shaw.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you waiting on me. I apologize for getting caught up in that traffic, and I apologize for not being able to be at some of these other meetings. But I'm just, and I know this has probably come up before, but how many other states have adopted this kind of in-court model legislation, and what has been the impact in those states?
I think that's a question for the department. Lindsay, you got something here?
Those four have adopted.
It's like 14 states right now have adopted it, and only 4 bills failed to pass. Of course, they counting Georgia, South Carolina, Indiana, Rhode Island, Virginia, Arizona, Texas, Pennsylvania, Alabama.
You said they're already counting Georgia?
Yeah. Because it was introduced this year, the bill was, and we didn't pass it this year.
To Chairman Shaw's question, how many actually have the statute in place?
14, excuse me.
I believe 4 have done it statutorily.
4, yeah, that's what it says right here.
And 3 or 4 have done it by administrative means.
Yeah, the department could do that. So, the present commissioner is the one that initially introduced and passed the first life settlement legislation, which was all new to us. Probably, God, it's been 7. How long has that been now? 10 years ago. Good gracious, 10 years ago. I don't think we've revisited. I don't remember revisiting it since then. So. I think it's.
These states have passed them.
I hear what Representative Carson says, but
administrative rule and regulation.
Thank you.
all of us have, I guess, 54,000 constituents. I know Representative Hughley's in the business. I'm in the business. Representative Lumsden's in the business, but I'm getting to the age where I would like to have an opportunity. And I'm going to do this to go back to my carriers and see what options I have. I know Representative Shaw, Chairman Shaw, you lost your dad. I don't know if anything was available when he was sick at the time, but I think it's something we ought to look at and go forward with. I don't see it being a major issue. I think we need to do everything we can to take care of constituents that don't know, not only constituents, but all people. I brought my policies, been in the business 38 years, hadn't sold just life insurance for 38 years, but I'm certainly no expert in it, but I think there are opportunities out there that people would like to have if they are diagnosed with a terminal situation or waiver premium. I found out the policy I have now doesn't have waiver premium. Of course, I'm not sure I'm eligible for it at my age now. So these are the unknowns that, and I think the other thing I want to say, the retaliation that an insurance company can have on their agents. I don't know, Representative Lumsden and Representative Hughley, I don't know if there's any issue y'all have with your contracts, since you work for certain carriers, and I don't know what I think an agent should be able to go to an insured and express, what options they do have at time. Representative Carson, before need. It'd be nice to know beforehand than afterhand. I know it would be for my wife and my children as well. So that's the way I look at it. So.
Mr. Chairman, instead of all of these triggers, why would it not be something simple like if a person is age 60 or if they have notified their insurer that they're terminally ill, they get an annual review or an annual release of this information rather than all of these various triggers that you have in the bill, because this says that it could be up to 4 times a year that information would be communicated
Oh, we can
to
change
the
it.
person again.
Would you be agreeable to 1 time a year?
I'm just trying to see what you're trying to get at. I think that if the committee feels that this notice is important, I think we should be able to accomplish your goal with upon the anniversary when the policy owner reaches age 60, or they have notified the company that they are terminally ill, then they get this information. Other than just
That's a good.
other than all of these other triggers that you have in here, because if the goal is so that people will have information as opposed to having insurers and agents chasing all of these triggers, they'll know that when the person reaches a certain age, then that becomes part of their conversation.
So line 67, where you're looking at line 67B is what you're referring to, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the triggers I, double I, triple I, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And 9.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, once a year, once the person is age 60 or they've indicated that they're terminally ill, then give them the disclosure, because you're saying that's what it's all about, right? Disclosure of what their options are.
Sure.
As the thing that really concerns me is if a person, takes out a loan. I mean, that's not really a big deal. And normally when people take out a loan on their policy, they need that money and they need it right then, and
Well, let me ask you this.
But I think you could accomplish your goal if that's the real goal. If we're going to go in this policy direction, I think you can accomplish the goal without having all of this long laundry list of triggers.
Well, the only thing that I see, if a lot of these triggers, Representative Hughley, if we don't have it in code, I don't think there's really any assurance that a carrier will do what they ought to do, I guess is what I'm saying. It would be the responsible thing to do, yes, but whether they will do it or not, I can't answer that. I know I've got a lot of questions for my present carrier now that I plan to intervene on, but that's just my take on it. Representative who? Sure. I mean, this is for us to talk about it, so. Anybody else?
I think the issue is not one that anyone wants to prevent someone from knowing this information. The question is, whose responsibility is it to provide, and at what cost? And the frequency, I think we've heard testimony that it's pretty onerous for insurance companies to be providing notice, which ultimately benefits life settlement companies. It just does not sit real well with me.
So you're totally against the bill then, right?
I'm totally against requiring life insurance companies to do advertisement for the benefit of life settlement companies.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay. Well, this is a wrap up, and we'll try to come up with some kind of study committee final, and if you want to sign on to it, you can sign on to it. But I think it's been a good testimony and from both sides. And Representative Carlson, you want to say something?
I was just wanted to know what is your intentions on process, distributing a report. I know the study committee stands abolished December 1st.
Yeah.
Just we're approaching it very quickly. I was just wondering what your thoughts were and
Well,
plan there.
what we'll do is probably just a generic report, and that hopefully everybody can agree to or not agree to. So, and we'll send it to everybody in the House. So, probably not as intense as your legislation, but
Don't know what you're talking about.
huh? Okay. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you.